We're now going to take a look at disruptive innovation, turning carbon dioxide from a global problem into a clean, profitable business. And I'd like to call on our moderator for this, a former journalist, a wonderful woman who has been extremely busy over the last few years, having left the journalist profession to set up Syria Deeply, and from there going on to be now the executive editor of a wonderful site you should all be looking at and be familiar with, Water Deeply. And she is in conversation with the CEO and co-founder of Global Thermostat. So I'll leave it to her now. Laura Satrakian.
So we're going to have fun with this session because there's a little bit of magic in the presentation you're going to see today from Dr. Graciela Ciesielnicki. It's a pleasure to be here with her. She is really one of the visionaries who's mastered both the art and science of climate change. She was the author of the Carbon Market Framework that was adopted as part of the Kyoto Protocols in 1997, which became international law in 2005. She's now a visiting professor at Stanford University and a celebrated CEO. She runs Global Thermostat, one of Fast Company's 10 most innovative companies in energy. She's going to give us a brief presentation about the work at Global Thermostat. I think you have it loaded up and ready to go. The company describes itself as a carbon-negative technology that extracts carbon from the air and turns it into products that can be used in industrial processes. So, really, when I say magic, I mean it, but it's the magic of technology, and she's going to explain to us how it works.
Thank you, Lara. I'm sorry to be smack on top of lunch.
You're worth it.
We'll try to keep your appetite in check. So this is, I think you have the slides here. It is indeed the world's top 10 most innovative company in energy and is quite disruptive. But what is more important here, the key thing, is that it doesn't suffice anymore to decrease carbon emissions. It's necessary to do so, but it's not sufficient. The only sufficient technology or the sufficient fact that has to happen to avoid catastrophic climate change, according to the UN IPCC and the Paris Agreement, is to remove carbon directly from the atmosphere, the carbon that is already there. Unless this is done, the fifth assessment report of the IPCC tells you that we will have catastrophic climate change. And this leads us to a technology that is indeed disruptive, but it is the lowest cost form of producing CO2. Farming it directly from the atmosphere is called direct air capture of carbon dioxide. Our company, Global Thermostat, GT, answers the critical challenge of climate change by profitably capturing atmospheric CO2 for productive industrial use, creating an abundant, reliable, low-cost supply wherever needed, and resolving the issue of the ever-increasing concentrations of CO2 in the atmosphere that you see there. In doing so, we are facing a major commercial unmet demand for CO2. The CO2 molecule is as important now as petroleum was in the last century. And this company, instead of farming petroleum, as done for hundreds of years, for at least 100 years, from the soil, we take the CO2 from the atmosphere. We farm, literally, the sky. And the reason there is such a huge demand for CO2 is because there is very limited supply, very high capture cost of the traditional technologies, and it's very difficult to transport. Our technology requires no transportation and is the lowest cost. It's so low cost that when we sell the CO2 that we farm from the sky, we make money, a lot of money. This tells you about the company. This company has received several awards, of which Forbes and KPMG most recently and the State of New York award for innovative technology, $250,000 this last month. The company is 6 years old. I started this company after I designed and wrote the carbon market into the Kyoto Protocol. There will be books about what I'm saying, as well as brochures after the presentation, and I will sign the books after this presentation in the table there. This tells you the timeline. I will go very fast, and what we're doing now is, after getting 21 patents, is commercializing this technology with the biggest companies, BASF, Corning, Coca-Cola, etc., with the commercial value proposition being the lowest cost production of CO2 in the world, most scalable. They are small units. They operate like windmills. They are not huge. No transportation, because they take the CO2 from air, and the CO2 distributes uniformly over the whole world, and is carbon negative. We have a plant operating in Silicon Valley at the Stanford Research Institute, which is where the internet was created. It's the most important technology company in Silicon Valley, and you are all invited to come and see the plant. It's cleaning the power plant emissions at SRI. They have a fossil fuel plant, and it's extracting additional CO2. So the combination is a plant that produces electricity and it cleans the atmosphere at the same time. I call it the carbon negative power plant. This is possible, and we should do it here. This will tell you how it works. I can send this presentation. I don't have time to go over it now. I can send this presentation, and I can also explain, if you have questions, how it works. This has some of the details. This is actually the plant, our plant, on there that you see at SRI. This is a commercial demonstration plant. It's a full-size commercial unit. And when you want to increase the size, you put several units together, as you do with a windmill farm. This is a video about our company that for some reason didn't come out.
Another time.
Another time.
You read the book.
Forbes magazine just wrote an article about our company saying that this is a company that can reverse climate change. This is a feature in Forbes, but I don't think we have sound. So we're going to move forward. So the question is, what do you do with the CO2? And these are some of the initial market verticals: biofertilizers, industrial gases, food and beverages, building materials, which is critical, synthetic fuels, and seawater desalination, with the oil and gas industry using CO2 for enhanced oil recovery being over $500 billion a year. The commercial validation is in the areas that you see here, and the partnerships are with the top companies: BASF, Corning, Linde, Georgia Tech, Stream Automation, CarMag, and Summit Power, NRG, our investor, etc. We have already $31 million invested, and we are about to close another round for $20 million. We have a little bit of space for an investor, a small investor, because most of the round is filled. But if anybody's interested, they should talk with me now before it closes, which is in a couple of weeks. This is the leadership with Peter Eisenberger, my chief technology officer and the CEO. He has led R&D for Exxon globally for years. Our chairman is Edgar Bronfman Jr., the family who created Seagram, and recently was the CEO of Time Warner. So we have, as I said, the world top most innovative company in energy, 10 top. I am the CEO of the year in Silicon Valley, was selected, and we have been given $250,000 by the state of New York in the last month.
Since we're down to our last minute, before we wrap up, I want to make sure.
So I should better stop
well,
here.
I want to make sure, frankly, we understand how do you want to grow this next, and what do you want to do in the Middle East in specific? or any thoughts you can share on how you plan to take this to scale.
Thank you, Lara, and I apologize. The way this company grows is by building plants. By the time we build 200 plants per nation, 40,000, we can capture all the CO2 that humans put in the atmosphere, which is 40 gigaton. The company grows by building plants. We should show you how these plants can take the CO2 from anywhere, from this room, from your home, from any location, from air, directly from the atmosphere, and of course, they can clean power plants. Any aluminum smelter, of which you have in Abu Dhabi, emits a lot of CO2. We put one of our plants next there, and we can eliminate that production of CO2 plus. The CO2 that we remove becomes a profitable source of revenue. For what? For Coca-Cola, for Pepsi, for McDonald's to do dry ice, for synthetic fuel mixing it with hydrogen, mixing the CO2 with hydrogen, for greenhouses to increase the productivity of food and vegetables, for enhanced oil recovery, which is a huge industry for mature oil wells, and the production of plastics and carbon fibers. That's how we grow.
Amazing. I told you magic, literally sucking pollution out of the air and turning it into fizzy drinks. Thank you so much for joining us, and you can find her book and company materials in the back, and of course come speak to Dr. Graciela after this session. Thank you.
Thank you.